are back. Coming to you live from Mobile Studio. I'm your host, Chad Ever Broshears, or Sir Chad Ever Broshears. If you know, you know. That's to some. And this is the Maturity Project. Today's conversation, and some of this stuff is what I'm experiencing myself in life, what I'm going through, insights that I'm having, and the intention is just to share something and to try to shake up a little bit of the perspective enough that gives you something to work with. Is having a fixed mindset with a problem that the fixed portion of your mindset does not have the ability to deal with the problem requires that you actually unfix the mindset enough. And when I say fixed, I mean in place, specific, and does not wane from that. Excuse me. Fixed minds, they're not open minds. The more fixed it is, the less open it is, kind of a spectrum value. And being flexible is one of the best things because adaptive is survival. We're really good when we're adaptive. And I have a high trait of adaptiveness. So I adapt very well. And circumstance is also one of the reasons why I'm so driven for finding the challenges and working on those things. So dealing with conflict the more fixed your mindset is, the more conflict you can experience whenever other minds outside of that fixed mindset, or the range that mindset is fixed within, the rails, the more conflict is likely for people around. And to deal with really truly finding success and finding other success models that can help you throughout life is really beneficial when you can learn how to deal with conflict and turn things from what would look like a deep, hard, progress-stopping challenge, or even progress-reversing challenge, which is worse because that's where people go into defense mode and start functioning a lot more in survival, which if you want to see the nastiest traits in human beings, put them in a survival requirement. We've all seen it. It's just to what level is that survival triggering their behavior, in a way that you can see, they are fighting to survive. And a lot of times we're just fighting for our ideas to survive. It's not really us, especially in our country, at least not in the immediate sense. So the more flexible you are, the better you are at surviving. So be adaptive. There's a statement that is it's been said, and I've spoken out against us for a long time now. There's a lot of these standardized statements that we're all taught. As I've said before, if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. I'm like, well, that's bullshit. Don't fall into that crap. You just have to be responsible for what you have to say, and then be responsible after you've said it in a way that you recognize what you said created an impact that you in a sense of needing to survive, because commonly that's going to have some sort of variation or variance inside of that reaction. Then you can be responsible, own it, and you can create actually a better bond with the person that found that conflict to be dividing and divisive. Don't fall into being a victim of that crap where you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all. No fan of that. But the other is, a jack of all trades is a master of none. That's an incomplete statement. A jack of all trades is a master of adaptation. And if you minimize that skill, that's to your own detriment. If you have people in your life that are masters of adaptation, which is demonstrated through a multitude of skills, master of all, but what is that? A jack of all trades, right? If you dismiss that person because you put them into this qualifier that actually diminishes their value, jack of all trades, master of none, most of us value mastery. So if that be the way that the majority of people see things, then cognitively we will process the idea of a master of none being less useful in society. And the truth is, they're actually highly useful and supportive of all sorts of things in society. So, you can become masterful in specific areas as you continue to develop in others. So don't diminish somebody because of those types of statements. So a jack of all trades is a master of adaptation. So keep that in mind whenever we start qualifying things. But when you're highly adaptive, you deal with conflict differently. Some people look at conflict as permanency of distance. And they're like, well, once this conflict is completely out in the open, this person is no longer part of, you put them in their quarantine zone. No, how useful is that, right? Yes, you have quarantine zones for a reason. You put people in containment in your mind and emotions in order to deal with whatever challenges that they may be, you may be perceiving about them. But if you lock things away, it's the same as whenever you're like 8 years old or whatever age in your youth or your upbringing, and somebody leads you into a feeling or gives you a determination that you cannot address this again, whether that's you got hit with enough shame to make you lock it away, or you got hit with enough negative or undesirable emotions without any kind of guidance in dealing with those emotions, and left to the adolescent mind is like, I just will never do this again. I'll never be here again. I can't deal with this again. I can't be hurt again, whatever that is. And you encapsulate that moment and the environmental challenges that come with that are packaged into it, the more direct association with what the experience is locked away. So when those things come up that's similar to it in the future, your behavior may shift and you don't have the recollection of why. You're just reacting. You're like, I don't know why I act this way. It drives me crazy. Because something's been locked away in your past, and it's put up. Now, if you were taught how to resolve conflict and to continuously deal with conflict in a way that you can mold it, like conflict is like a clay block. If you don't know how to mold the block, that thing just represents either uselessness or danger, depending on how it's being used in perception. Right, so if somebody just says, hey, clay block, or if they don't even tell you it's clay, they're just like, hey, block, and you avoid it because you have no known use for it. So, okay, well then it really is kind of benign, but you have nothing you can do there because of ignorance and there's no knowledge of workability. Or somebody grabs that clay block and chunks it at you. Now it represents the concepts of danger. If it was weaponized or perceived to create harm in a way that feels real, then you're likely to say that's dangerous. I'm not going to be involved with that. Hell no. And it gets locked away into a danger concept. But if you're taught how to deal with clay, you can say, hey, I may not know a usefulness about this right now, but let me mess with it. Let me do something with it. And you start molding and things, and then at first it's just the experience of the fact that you can move it around and make it take shapes, and then you start coming up with creative ideas about what to mold it into. And the more that you do it, the more likely you are to come up with a usefulness to it. That clay block might be a plate or an ashtray, or depending on how good you are at it, it might turn into art. Same concepts with conflict. And I hope that makes that connection for you, because conflict absolutely is something that is useful. Conflict is representation of a disagreement. And disagreeing with people is not bad. It's not bad at all. Because this is, a Power Man 3000? Yeah, Power Man, or 5000, I forgot which one it is. Anyways, Rob Zombie's brother is the lead singer of this band, Power Man 5000, I think. Whatever. And there's a song called This Is What It's Like When Worlds Collide. It's a rock song. I'm 80s and 90s. So, as they're dealing with, the recognition of conflict and how worlds are colliding, because that's what it comes across as. Worlds colliding, right? Politics does this all the time. And it's something that I really I want to stand in the way of it and take that clay block and turn it into something far more beneficial. but that's for another conversation. But I look for those conflicts in myself, and I work on creating some resolution to it, some workability to it. So in this is the same, it's like whenever worlds collide, you've got the entirety of how you feel about that thing, and the closely it is to who you are at a core, the more likely you are to be defensive over it. So when people are being conflict in your life, why? And a lot of that conflict is typically it's a misunderstanding, because it gets down to a simple, if you remember the silly thing that went around about the color of a dress a couple of years ago. And it's like, what color is this dress? Is it blue, or is it, I think, red, or I forgot whatever the color was. It's whatever. And it's, everyone, there was like this stupid argument online, and not necessarily fully stupid, it's illustrative of it and descriptive of what I'm talking about as far as conflict is, two people are looking at the same thing, but they don't agree on what it actually is by definition. And the definition of this was the color being definition, and specifically which one is it? And because they framed it in a way that already positioned it as it was a position of conflict. So people argued about it. But they talked about the same damn dress. It wasn't two different pictures. It was one picture of the same dress. But it was in the perception of it, and some of that has to do with how we're trained to identify specific colors. The other is actually our biology and our genetics about how our eyes perceive color and the variances within ourselves, like within our species. So and that goes into the science of it, and I'm not an expert there. So, but anyway, you can look into it to find out the differences in between individuals and how we perceive color. So most of the time, we don't get down to that level of definition about existence. We say, oh, that's blue, or that's purple, or that's red, and we kind of go about our day because it's so minuscule by comparison until it's important, right? Like, what color do you want the house? And you and your wife get into an argument, or your husband, or whatever, your partner. And they're like, well, I never thought this would be a problem. Now there's a conflict there. Deal with it. Look at it as an opportunity. I've dealt with this in relationships, and I got to tell you, the relationships that are the deepest, beneficial, and valuable to me are the ones that have had conflict, but willing to work through the conflict for resolution because it made me grow, and therefore it also made the other person grow, which turned into something absolutely amazing, in myself and the other person and the way that we're bonded. It's a beautiful thing. So if you look at conflict as opportunity, everything changes. And yeah, you can be reactive. Here's the thing, whenever I said earlier, if you if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all, wipe that shit out. God, that's such a freaking limiter on human beings. I get it. It's to try to reduce the upset and then, make things more cohesive. I understand the idea of it. But the outcome has created suppression of expression, which leads to upset. So if you have nothing nice to say, don't say anything at all, and you're constantly biting your lip, and the other person has a stronger constitution for who they are, and your bond about them being involved in your life is strong enough for you to not say something, then over time resentment builds, and then it's a slow poison. Resentment's a slow poison. It's like sipping on this thing, hoping the other person comes around, and then eventually turning it into, oh, no. You're not turning it around. You're becoming my enemy. You're the person that's putting this poison in my drink. No, you did, because you didn't express yourself. You didn't have that moment of conflict. I was raised in that world of, if you have nothing nice to say nothing at all. I don't resent my mother for it. That was predominantly from my mom, but my father did echo the sentiment. But it was mostly my mother's, push into me, and I don't resent it. I've developed out of that. I see differently now, and I've grown from it. But that reduced my functions in conflict, and I used to be so incredibly conflict avoidant that I wouldn't even come close to an argument with people. Anything of value and substance. And if I had one, it was so fickle. It had no real depth when it came to where I was in the position. There were very few non-starters for me that I was willing to actually have a fight with somebody over. Because I'm like, you know what? It's fine. But then I started to just get this functional upset. And actually, I'm sorry, a dysfunctional upset. I just started to get resentful towards a lot of things. And I became resentful as a person at times. And I realized how far away from who I know me to be that it was hurting everything in my world. Because I lost a lot of joy, which was a seed value for happiness. I lost so much about, the satisfaction in life at that time that I realized one of the things now in retrospect is it was the challenge necessary of breaking that particular fixed mindset. And the fixed mindset was to avoid conflict. And I'm like, fuck that, man. We need to have conflict. Now, I'm not saying escalated conflict to the point of, irreparable damage. If you kill somebody, right, you're not going to be able to turn that around with the person that you killed. Okay, well, let's bring it down then. Let's not go that high in that level of effort to, establish conflict, because we don't want to establish conflict for the sake of arguing. You do it for the sake of understanding and positioning yourself so that the conversation can exist. You can argue with somebody and love them. You can argue with somebody and love them more because of it. It doesn't mean that your relationship is based on arguing. It can mean your relationship is based on growth. But if you sit there and you're quiet and you're a pushover, just because you physically may not be able to hurt the person, doesn't mean you can't emotionally destroy them. And when you recognize that as a recourse for the upset that you've been going through, then there's a damn good chance you're gonna really fuck them up. Because you have consistently dealt with a level of stress that starts to justify that as an outcome. This is how you dissolve an asshole. Because that's what you do. You dissolve assholes. If you want to be able to create bonds and values, you dissolve assholes. You learn that person has had a lifetime of decisions that have come to the point where you Power Man 5,000, I think it's actually 5,000, where you Power Man 5,000 that moment where what it's like when worlds collide. You guys are coming together in a way that's enough, man, it's like wrecking balls hitting each other. Because there's the shell of who we are that is our fortification for dealing with the world that tells us our self-worth. And I am solid in these areas. And somebody else comes along and they're like, I am solid in these areas. Well, that particular solidity to you, what makes you strong and what makes you in that, requires a specific set of resources you're used to procuring in order to have that level of determination about you, that level of awareness of you. See, the thing is, it can't be cut off. Because as soon as that level of awareness of you, the thing that resource value produces that level of confidence in you, you start to feel less confident. And it erodes, and then you feel attacked personally, or you feel depressed, you feel frustrated, you feel upset, because it's like your foundation is being attacked, because it is part of your foundation. It's part of who you believe you are. So you have this thing going on where that's the shell of that wrecking ball. That's the outer parameter of it, is the thing that you recognize yourself by. So as soon as that other person has those things that, let's say that the validation value is an example to give you some substance to this. The validation value of it is that, let's say that you got a boss, let's say it's a CEO of the company, and then you have two people that are in the executive levels, but they're under the CEO, it's the way it works. And they're in this power dynamic struggle that they don't realize that they're in. And the acknowledgement coming from the CEO is the validation that helps solidify that shell, that the outer structure of the wrecking balls, right? The persons involved. And then they're like, well, you know what? It's not typical to validate two people at the same time. It's not easy. So you've got one person getting validated, the other one feels like it's being taken away. and then they start to feel weakened, then they start to react, and they get frustrated and upset, or they whatever, the more negatives, if they start to have any kind of doubt about themselves, whether their skill sets, abilities, whatever, those things are attached to that validation of who they are, and those traits help strengthen it. But at the same time, those traits also get weakened if the essential element of validation is removed. So then you have this where, okay, well, now I got to swing my wrecking ball harder, and the other person's like, what the hell are you doing, dude? Like, why are you attacking me? Or you're escalating the attack. That's the worlds colliding. So you can do other things in that too. It's parents and children, and children have the parents' attention, and it's very hard for parents to give equal attention to both kids. Typically, it's the one that needs more attention based off of upsets or complaints or frustrations or whatever those things are. This is representation, and it's represented in all of our life, all the time, all over the place. It's just where it's recognizable. Unless you're really truly doing the work to become better at dealing with life and dealing with the conflict. So you get these things, these two worlds collide, they wrecking balls hitting into each other. The good thing is what happens, like a wrecking ball is made in order for breaking something down. If you, instead of having the wrecking balls hit each other, you align them so where they're both swinging in the same direction. You actually get more than double the impact when you have two of them working together, because of the value of inertia, the force that's being produced based off of the movement, and how that transitions from the ball itself into whatever it's colliding with. But when you have two of them, you're increasing the potential of the threshold break for whatever it's hitting, but also it jeopardizes the integrity for other parts of that thing it just swung into, because of the dual momentum. Where if it was just one, then you would only have as much impact as possible, but the structure could actually absorb some more of the force that's coming from the ball. But you would combine the two in the same timeline, you can increase that value, or you put them within synchronicity, where they're not necessarily perfectly timed, but they're close to it. It doesn't allow the structure you're trying to take down to actually withstand it. It actually lowers its threshold of resistance. So anyway, I'm using like construction lingo here, and I hope that I didn't lose anybody in that. But that's the same thing. When you align conflict with people in a way that you could work together and learn from each other and support each other, then you can get better results. So with the CEO example, an amazing CEO would recognize that and then align the two of them. Instead of looking at it like they're fighting each other, arguing amongst each other, they now have the ability to align and become that much more potent, because they can support each other with their unique skill sets and reduce the stress and realize that they have a partnership with each other, which partnerships really go a long ways. So, all right, that's that part of it. I don't want to continue on, because using those examples, if it doesn't resonate for you, and being able to see it in yourself and your own relationships, or even your own inner turmoil, which, cognitive dissonance is typically what happens when you have two conflicting ideas that meet up with each other, that they oppose one another, but they're under the same umbrella or within the same subject value. But anyway, not to go down that route, because it's a pretty intensive conversation. And again, I'm not an expert at it, but I have the insights necessary to have functional positioning. So, all right. Let's see, what else is learn to deal with conflict, man. It's when you learn to deal with conflict, you can actually extract resources necessary to become more successful. At the same time, and with resources, I don't just mean like money and whatever material things. It's also the experience itself that you have with the other person is a resource value. The experience that the other person has, and by winning them over, by dealing with the conflict in a way you create resolution, then you can work together in a way that at least can coexist. If not, then collaborate, which is preferable if you can collaborate. Then you can extract each other's resources in a way that you could both benefit. Because you can start talking about ideas, experiences, and challenges, and the wins, and all of the stuff that the two of you have ever gone through, and bond deeper in a way that the goal becomes more achievable. That's how you organize people in order to become more successful at things. But if you want to stop the conflict and challenges that you've been dealing with in life, this is one of the best ways to do it, in my experience. Now, mind you, let's get to this, because that is not what I wanted. Here we go. Now, mind you, I'm not saying I'm an expert at any of this stuff. The maturity project, I'm not an expert at the entirety of it. There's 8 different areas. That's why I want, and that's why I'm out to collaborate with people that are better than me, that developed more than I am in certain places, and develop more than I am in certain places under certain circumstances, or different perspectives or directions and angles. There's way too much to life for me to say that I got it down. So I just have the insights and the depth of understanding that helps me get a little bit further in this, because I have the ability to adapt better to the challenges that are occurring. But I still got to deal with me. I still got to deal with wherever my position is, and the fortitude of myself, and the outer surface of my wrecking ball. I still got to deal with that. But it's in our modern era, we like to take anything that becomes more functional, and we call it smart, right? Computer chips in it, and it becomes, a TV that can now hear you and follow your direction instead of just using a remote, or, access the internet, whatever. We add that smart concept to it. Well, maybe I got a smart wrecking ball. So it may have the same force until it goes into enough of the exposure to be able to pivot, to adapt to the challenges. But ultimately, you know what? It's still a wrecking ball. It's just, I got to deal with it. And I'm adding the smart part of it by working my ass off to develop. And I really hope that I do the same with other people. So, as far as all of this is concerned, I hope that you guys join me in this journey. Now, I don't have the answers for you. All I can do is offer insights and experiences, explore it, and, help with, if you need the certainty where I say, yes, that's the answer, okay. But I'm going to tell you, there's a lot more out there than my perspective. I can give you the answers that I've had for my life, but I can't give you the answers for your life, because you're unique in your own experiences and challenges. And I don't want to give something that's going to be incomplete data, or information that leaves you with false confidence in the idea of safety, that something is going to be, completely done properly or whatever, right? Like, this is how you do what, X, Y, and Z. I'm not out to give people that. I just want to be able to give perspectives, insights, and to get people thinking into their own life that helps them get to that point of achieving their goals. So with that, this is the Maturity Project. We're talking about conflict and its benefits, man. Conflict is a huge benefit for life, but you have to know how to deal with it, because it's just a clay block. And once you can recognize what it is, then you can do something with it, but you got to practice. You got to practice with it until you can understand how to manipulate it in a way that actually works in both, in your favor, and the utility that comes out of that. An ashtray is typically not for one person, right? It could be, but it has a community potential. It becomes useful. A plate, same thing. It's like, what can you turn that clay block into? No. All right, that's what I got for you today. Again, this is Chad Everett Broshears, or Sir Chad Everett Broshears, if you know, you know. And this is the Maturity Project. So share this video with people in your life you want to break the ice with. If you feel that this is a good way of getting that conversation started, it's a good way to do it, man. Figure out a ritual, too, to give yourself a little something when you wake up. Get something to get you thinking on a daily basis. And, like the channel, and subscribe to it. Like the video, comment in the comment section. And, we got a world to work on, man. Let's get geared to grow. And let's work on ourselves before we create the path to hell. Because it's always paved with good intentions. So, let's do the right thing here. Well, the right thing, right? As I said earlier. But let's work on this, okay? All right, let's get to it. That's it for today. Catch me on the next one. Again, don't forget to subscribe. It'll let you know when I'm going live, and you won't miss any videos. All right, catch you next time. We'll see you. Let's get to it.